Hi, this is Barbara at the Hampton Falls Library. Because of the COVID illness, we are still closed to the public. I know everyone likes to come and browse the new bookshelves and see what bestsellers we have in, which unfortunately you can't do that right now. So instead, we're going to bring the new books and the bestsellers to you. So bear with me, and I will go through some of our new books that have just come in. The Lincoln Conspiracy by Brad Meltzer. Plots, conspiracies, death threats, a polarized country, the rise of white supremacy, not my president. What year are we talking about? It's actually 1861. President-elect Lincoln is on his way traveling from Illinois to his first inauguration in Washington, D.C. And there are actual death threats on him at this time. Now bear in mind, we don't have an FBI or a Secret Service at the time, so the president's protection is being done by the Pinkerton Detective Agency, which has risen to the occasion and sent a team of undercover agents to protect the president, including the first female private eye in the United States. Fast-paced action, fast dialogue. Even if you don't like history, you'll follow this one. Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Giles. In 2016, we were absolutely enthralled with her book, News of the World. She returns to Texas after the Civil War, where things are in absolute chaos. Texas was part of the Confederacy, part of Mexico, part of France, part of Spain, an independent country, and now it's supposedly coming back into the Union. Simon is a fiddler who is conscripted into the Confederate Army at the very end of the war. He ends up being drafted into a regimental band, playing before both the Confederate and then the victorious Union Army, where in the audience he spots Doris, a young Irish indentured servant girl, and falls madly in love at first sight with her. For the rest of the book, he is on a journey trying to locate her, free her from her servitude, and prove himself a worthy suitor. And in these uncertain times, sometimes we just need a nice love story, and that's what this is. The Splendid and the Vile by Erik Larson. Erik Larson is a master writer of nonfiction. We've all enjoyed so many of his books, such as The Devil in the White City. This book focuses on Winston Churchill during the Battle of Britain, during Churchill's beginning of his time as Prime Minister of England. Churchill's greatest strength was his amazing rhetoric. He gave speeches that still resonate today. Using nothing but his rhetoric, he reinforced the morale of the British people against the German Blitzkrieg. He fended off Hitler, who was demanding that England surrender prior to being invaded, and he also spends a great deal of time courting Franklin Roosevelt to try and entice the United States into helping England, trying to emphasize the desperate situation that the British people were in. All the while, he has family and a close circle of advisors who are sometimes less than helpful to his equanimity at the time. So for the history buff, it's a very good read about Churchill. If It Bleeds by Stephen King. Look, a Stephen King book that isn't very big. It's always been my personal opinion that Stephen King was a much stronger writer of short stories and novellas, rather than some of the doorstops that he has produced during his career. So he's returning to that format. These are 4 novellas, which I have not yet read, but I'm looking forward to it because I think that's a good format for him. If you've read any of his short stories, some of them, like Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, became a movie, The Shawshank Redemption, and The Body became the movie Stand By Me. So I'm hoping that these next 4 novellas are going to fall into that format, and we will all enjoy being scared by Stephen King. Codename Hélène by Ariel Lahorn. This is historical fiction. Our book group here recently read A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell, in which we heard about a young American woman who was very active in the French resistance and quite a leader. This is historical fiction based on another woman named Nancy Wake, who is a journalist living in Paris and who also becomes one of the leaders of the French resistance. So if you like World War II historical fiction, here's another one for you. Also on the bestseller list this week is the Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. Kidd is a very prolific author. We've all read The Mermaid Chair, The Invention of Wings, which were all by her. Here she really goes out on a limb, and she's writing a book that takes place during the time of the New Testament. She makes up a fictitious wife of Jesus whose name is Anna, and she is a scribe in her own right. It's very interesting what if or alternative reality to what might have happened if Jesus had a wife. Would she have had a life of her own? What kind of voice would she have had? How would she have reacted to his ministry? Very interesting questions, very thought-provoking, and she does a magnificent job of research into the times of Israel at that time being occupied by the Roman army and the interaction of the Jewish population with the occupying army and how people were struggling to live at the time. So definitely worth a read.